This month on the morning meetings, we are talking specifically about the theme of how your personal growth ties and correlates directly to your income growth. And so we dove into this topic a little bit on Thursday. I introduced the concept to you guys. And today, what we're going to be doing at every meeting is we're going to be chunking it down, just chunking it down a little bit. And today, what we're talking about is really this concept of worrying about what people think of you. This is a huge area of growth for a lot of people. Now, I talked about this on a Living Forward that we did a week and a half ago, a Living Forward TV, and I'll make sure I link to it in the comments below on the 3 things you need to stop doing in order to create income in your business. And this episode was really dedicated to those of you who've had another job before starting your business and who've learned to thrive in in somebody else's world, and now how those same success habits don't necessarily work in your own business. So I'm going to put that below. And one of the things we talked about was the need to be liked. And this is a real huge area of personal growth because as humans, it's natural to want connection with other people. It's natural to want people to like us. It's natural to want to be accepted. And so on a social level, these things are really important, right? And that comes from the time we were babies because we needed that connection from our mom and dad to live, right? It was a matter of life or death as a baby. And we hold on to that because we don't know, our subconscious mind as adults don't know that we're going to be just fine physically if we don't have that acceptance. But we don't learn to grow out of that necessarily as adults without the help, without the personal growth. And that is such an important part of growing your income, this particular piece of personal growth, because if you're worried about what people think of you, then you're not necessarily going to be making decisions or taking actions that are in your best interest or your business's best interest. And sometimes, I see entrepreneurs hold themselves back an awful lot. I was at an event this weekend and in San Diego, and I was talking to a few entrepreneurs, and some of them had some really great ideas on what they wanted to do for a business. And they also had successful careers, like corporate careers. And there were a few things holding them back from making that leap, and we're not going to get into all of it. But one of the things that one of the women I spoke to said to me was, my family will think I'm crazy, right? So these are the type of things where we are really holding back what we want based on what other people think. So how does that affect us as an entrepreneur, and how does personal growth fit into that? Well, we're going to start by looking at how worrying about what people think can actually affect you as an entrepreneur. And we talked about this in that Living Forward TV episode, and I encourage you to go back and watch it if you haven't, and make sure to grab the download, because I go to a whole bunch of other things that really do have a lot to do with stretching and personal growth when it comes to getting to your income, because there's actually 10 things I list, but we only talk about 3 in the episode. But the thing to keep in mind here is, now the reason personal growth affects your income is because, as we talked about in our last morning meeting, your income can always exceed your technical skills. Always. Some of the smartest people or wealthiest people on the planet aren't skilled at all the nuts and bolts of their business that made them successful, right? My business, taking as a microcosm, my entire business is built on video and technology. I am not a video expert. I am not a technology expert. I'm a people expert, right? I work with people. I create profound transformation. I bring them solid business skills. And my way of communicating and reaching people is through technology and video. So I couldn't bring my true skills and what I'm really talented at to people without the technology. And so the technology is one of the backbones of my business. I know nothing about it. I don't need to know anything about it because I am able to hire those skills out. And if you look at other businesses, that is something that is, and sometimes the owner of the business doesn't even have any skills related to the business. I just happen to be very good at the skills I provide, but some business owners, they might own let's say they own an airline. They don't necessarily know anything about flying planes or building planes, but they hire people for it. These are the type of things to think about, that your technical skills have really nothing to do with your income. But what's going to take somebody that extra step? What's going to make them say, you know what, I don't know how to do this, and I'm interested in it, and I'm going to make a business out of it anyway? That's the personal growth. And growing your income requires taking risks, stretching, having uncomfortable conversations, risking people not liking you, doing things like you've never done them before, being willing to have people think you're crazy, being willing to put money on the table and risk it. All of those things that can kind of like terrify you on the inside. And that stuff doesn't come easy to people. It doesn't come naturally. That's where the personal growth comes in. And so that's why we're tying personal growth to income growth. And I'm going to repeat this on every morning meeting that we have during the month, one version of this. So if you've watched your other ones, just bear with us. I just think it's important for those who haven't seen our previous morning meetings to understand why we're tying this in. And so today when we dive into the piece about people liking you, let's take a look at that. So first of all, when we worry about people liking us, the biggest consequence of being concerned about what people think of us and people liking us is holding back, right? It's action we don't take, or it's action we take that we don't want to do because we're worried about hurting people's feelings, or because we're worried that somebody's going to be mad at us, or because we're worried that we might lose love or we might lose approval. We don't do the things we really want to do. And then when we don't do those things, we don't create what we want. And creating income, as I said, it takes a big leap, right? Just like the example of the person who said, I want to have my own business, but my family will think I'm nuts. So, you can't underestimate how much we hold on to that, how much as humans, if we don't work through that we can really hold ourselves back. And so let's think of some other ways. Like a really good example is pricing. If you have pricing in your business, and this is something I help entrepreneurs with all the time, is getting their pricing straight and getting their mindset straight around their pricing. Because if they don't have that, then they don't have anything. And yet the biggest objection I'll hear is, I don't think people will pay that, or people are going to judge me, or they're going to compare me to somebody else who's so much better than me, right? And so they've already forgotten completely about the value they bring through their products or their services, and they've gone right into self-judgment and worrying about what other people think, instead of saying, who can I serve? Who needs this? Who's going to get the most value? What's the value they're going to get out of this? And I'm going to go this way and get what I want. Instead, if you're worried about what people think, you stay here and you can stay small. And as long as you stay small and play small, you can't achieve big. So these are things where worrying about what people, think of you or can hinder you. Another way this can affect you, and I see this all the time too, because one of the things I work with a lot of my clients on is helping them to get really, really comfortable in a sales conversation and asking for money. Our episode on Thursday, our Living Forward TV episode on Thursday, is all about how to ask for money. And I'm not going to dive into some of the things we talk about in there, because there's some really big aha moments, especially for those of you who've had a corporate job. I think you're going to have some light bulbs go off with what we talk about. But this is one of the things where if you are worried about what people think of you, or having people like you, you may hold back on having sales conversations, or you might be in a conversation with somebody that could be an ideal client, and you should be shifting this over to a formal discovery session and getting them in your calendar. And if you're afraid of what they think of you, then you don't do it. And I see it happen time and time and time again. I mean, when I first started my business, these things I'm sharing with you, it's nothing I haven't been through myself and have had to work through, and I've had mentors to help me work through that, because I was just as scared myself to have those conversations. And so this is all part of the personal growth, when you can get over that fear of like, what will people think of me, and step into how can I help other people. That's a big leap, right? Because so often, we let our own stuff get in the way of helping someone else. And that's actually pretty selfish when you think about it, right? So this is where personal growth, really comes in, getting past that fear and not being afraid to have a sales conversation or to invite somebody to work with you. Another way, and we're going to talk about this on another morning meeting about boundaries, I'm just going to touch on it really briefly here. So another way that worrying about what people think of you can really impact your income is you don't say no, right? You don't say no to things that really aren't a fit for you. I'm going to give you another example, something that just happened this weekend. When I was at the event I was at, there was an amazing group of women at the table that I was sitting with, and we all did connect. And one of them wanted to start a mastermind with everybody at that table. Now, here's the thing that's really important to remember. And one of the speakers said it, so I'm just going to quote him because he summed it up in one sentence better than I could ever say. There is no transformation without transaction, right? When there's a transaction, you've got skin in the game and you show up differently. And the bigger the transaction, the bigger you show up, or should show up. I mean, because if you don't, then that's a whole other conversation. But because of that, I mean, I have a very strong personal conviction and value that I'm not going to participate in something that is just thrown together, that people are not committed to, that they have not put money on the table in to be involved in. And I've invested a lot of money to be in the coaching program that I'm in with my own mentor and the people that I choose to surround myself with. And so this one, and she meant very well. She kept saying, we need to connect, we need to continue working together, we need to mastermind. And just kind of knowing where I was in my business, I mean, I knew that what these women actually needed was some solid coaching. What they should not have been doing was coming to a group of their peers expecting help for free, because there were a lot of other experts at that table that could have helped them in different areas of their business and their different areas of their personal growth that required an investment, that required coaching. But she just didn't know, right? And so, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I might have said yes because I would want to be included. I would have wanted the friends. I wouldn't have wanted to hurt her feelings. And it was interesting because there was an awkward silence at the table, and I knew one of us had to say no. And so a friend of mine was also at that table. She's like, boy, if you didn't say no, I was going to. And I just said, this isn't going to work for me. So thank you for the offer, but this isn't a fit. And we moved on. Now, again, this is something where it took a lot of personal growth to get to that point, to be able to say no and not worry what she thinks, because quite frankly, I don't care what she thinks. In those moments, though, when you're face to face with another human, you can care. I mean, because I did care. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I didn't want to make her wrong. I didn't want her to feel bad. And going into what I'm explaining to you guys today about the fact that there needs to be a transaction, she needs to hire a lot of those services, was not the appropriate place to do it. So the personal growth comes in with having the confidence and the courage to gracefully, kindly, lovingly, but firmly say no. This isn't going to fit. And, like I said, another friend of mine was at that table and she said the same thing because she's done her personal work as well. So these are really important things that can really hold entrepreneurs back because they don't want to say no. Something like that may come up and they don't want to say no to it, or people are wanting their time, or they are saying, hey, let's go for coffee. I have another episode of Living Forward TV I'm going to post here about business coffee dates, because I have a completely different take on that. I don't do coffee dates. Doesn't mean I don't meet with people in coffee shops, but every meeting I have has to have a purpose and intention, a structure, and an intended outcome, because my time is the most valuable thing I own. I'm not going to go give it just to meet and chat about nothing, right? But in the beginning of my business, I used to drive all over the place anytime somebody wanted to meet for coffee because I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to know me, right? So this is another area where being worried about what people think can really affect your ability to create income. If I had been on the phone making sales calls or connecting with people that way and talking to people and making offers instead of driving all around town, I could have been making more money a lot sooner. So these are the things where that, and I'm just going to back up on that, because a lot of times, I went because I wanted them to like me. I didn't go because I wanted to go. Like, I would dread these coffee dates going, I can't believe I'm doing this. And if you're ever thinking that to yourself, that I can't believe I'm doing this, I don't want to do this, then you've got to, that's an area of growth for you. That's an area for you to be saying, whoa, why am I doing this? Why am I doing something that I'm saying inside to myself, I don't want to do this, right? It's not about you at that point. It's about worrying what people think of you. So losing that fear of what people think of you is one of the biggest steps. And I know it's one of the hardest things you can do as an entrepreneur, as a human. I mean, it's not something that even necessarily comes all that easy to me, because I still work on it daily. I mean, even at this weekend, I had to stop and think. However, I wasn't going to go there. So it's just something, I mean, and I understand that. And if you struggle with that, like, leave me a comment below and I'll answer you, and let me know what you struggle most with when it comes to this. Now, here's the thing. When you can let go of worrying about what people think of you, and you can step into an attitude and a mindset of service and service only, that's a big leap, and that's a huge piece of personal growth. One of the things you want to remember is, when you're working with people and you're offering them your services, you shouldn't be selling to sell. I mean, that's just really not the point of selling, because then it's all about you. And that's where worrying, so it gets a lot easier to worry what people think of you. A sales conversation is a service. It's a bridge from where somebody is to where they want to go, or it's a bridge from something they really kind of want and excites them that they don't have to getting it. The only way you cross that bridge is through a sales conversation and through a transaction, and that's all it is. So when you approach those conversations and you approach everything you do from the perspective of, how do I help that person? Whether they buy from me or not, how do I help them? How do I stay in service to them? And staying in service to somebody is always about being truthful, and it's not about necessarily being nice. Now, that doesn't mean you're unkind. You can be kind and you stay truthful all the time, and you stand in your truth. And so when you can lose that fear of what they think, or that they might not like what you say, or that they might be upset that you are actually asking them to step up and invest in themselves and your services, then you have a whole different business. And what you also do is, and from this perspective, people who are interested in wasting time, and there are people out there who will take every single free thing they can get because they are not willing to step forward, right? And you are going to come across people like that in your business. It's just part of the deal, right? And you'll be thinking like, oh my goodness, if I get one more person who's just here to pick my brain and waste my time, I'm going to explode. Here's the thing, you attract that. I mean, we all still get it to a certain degree because we can't control other people. But I'm telling you, in the beginning of my business, I used to get it all the time because I was worried about what people think. Now it happens fewer and further between. And if people do show up that way, I'm not afraid to ask them, like, hey, what's really going on here? I mean, whether you choose to work with me or work with someone else, there's something you want. Why aren't you doing it? Why are you continuing to waste your own time? And I will go there because I'm committed to truth for that person. I'm not committed to what they think of me, right? My love for them and their results is way deeper than what I care about what they think of me. So when you can approach your business from that aspect, you get less attached to the sale for the sake of the sale, and you get really committed to serving people. You become bolder, you become more confident, and you will be in more conversations with people. It's just that simple. And you will say no to things that don't serve you because they don't serve you. You won't say yes to things that are stopping you from making money because you're worried about somebody else. I had a client once who people would ask her, because they thought that she worked from home, that she didn't really have a job. So all the moms in the neighborhood would ask her to run the carpool because they figured she had time. And I told her, you're creating that. Would they do that if you were going to an office? And she said, no. I said, well, then the only person that can cross that hurdle is you. And you got to set up office hours. It's that simple. So again, and that came down to that personal growth piece and letting go of worrying about what these people who had no impact on her life at all were thinking about her. And that's something I just want to leave you with, because it's amazing how we can let people who we don't even know, who don't have to live with the decisions of our lives, make the decisions for us because we're worried about what they think, and they're only thinking about themselves, right? And if they're thinking anything negative of you, it's because they didn't get what they want, and who cares? Now, I know when it comes to bringing that home and it gets closer and it's your spouse or your mom or your sister or your best friend and worrying about what they think of you, I understand that's harder. And we're going to talk about boundaries a little bit more on our Thursday morning meeting. What I want to say to you for this, though, too, is that, if what you're doing is important to you, only you get to live your life. Only you get to be fulfilled or unfulfilled. And these people who are closest to you, a lot of times they're afraid of losing you. They're afraid of who you might become. They have their reasons for you not wanting you to go forward. And if you're worried about what they think of you, you're still not going to take action. You're going to hold back. I've talked to people who have said, I really want to do this, but my husband will never approve of it. And I asked them, well, I realize being married is a partnership. I've been married 20 years. It is a partnership. You need to agree on things together, but to not even have the conversation with your husband because you're worried about what he's going to think doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't get you closer to where you want to go. All it does is solves the problem of not having an uncomfortable conversation. Now, sure, through that conversation, there may be compromise, or there may be things that you two have to work out within your own marriage. However, being afraid of what he thinks, preventing the conversation, it's not fair to him either, because he doesn't know what's really in your heart, right? And talking to your spouse about money is a whole other thing. We're going to do a Living Forward episode on that, because that I think is something that really trips up a lot of women, and they don't achieve what they want because they don't want to talk to their husband about money. But that's a different story. We're not going to get into that today. What I want to say though is that, when you're looking at the people who are in your world that are really close to you, you still have to remember they don't live your life, you do. And so this personal growth piece comes in where you're willing to step up. You're willing to be a model for them and an example to them of somebody who achieves and somebody who creates what they want. And that you let them know that you love them and you care about how they feel, but you don't care what they think of you, because for you to be in full service to them and to your purpose, you need to do the things you need to do. So again, this comes to personal growth, because that's probably one of the hardest things you can ever do is stand up to those who are closest to you for not worrying about what they think. And it's the hardest, and it's probably the most important thing to cross, because when you think about it, the people that are closest to you, if you're letting the fear of what they may think of you stop you, it's not, like I said, it's not fair to them, it's not fair to you, because then you end up in resentment because you're not doing what you want because of the people closest to you. And again, they don't live with your results. Sure, they might live with you, but you still live with the results. They don't live what goes on inside of you, whether you're fulfilled or unfulfilled. And that's a choice you have to make. So that's part of the personal growth, and being able to do that in a way that is really loving. And one of the things my mentor says is it's not selfish to live the way you want. It's not. Where it becomes selfish is wanting the people around you to live the way you want to live, right? So that's another boundary you have to set, right? So you have to be willing to say, listen, I accept that this is not for you, and not be trying to drag them or pull them to where they don't want to go, because that's not cool either. And again, that means stepping forward, and sometimes you might have space between yourself and certain friends. And again, that comes down to the personal growth. That's why, when I work with my particular clients, like especially in the mastery program that we're opening next year, there is so much work on personal growth. Yes, there's the business models, the income, the client acquisition strategies, and all of that. But none of that works if the personal piece isn't there. And right there, client acquisition strategies, you got to let go of what people think of you, right? Putting together a business model that requires that gets into risk, which we'll talk about in another episode. But all of that really comes down to this personal growth piece. Your income will always match who you are and where you are. So if you're looking to go from like $20,000 a year to $100,000 a year, you've got to ask yourself, and I told you guys this last week, right, when you're writing your goals down, who do I need to become to make that happen? Because if you just keep saying, I want to make this money, and you don't do anything different, and you keep sticking to yourself, and you keep doing the same things over and over and over again, and you keep being afraid to have the conversations, you keep being afraid to step into who that person is, you keep being afraid to deal with what it is, you stay afraid to invest the money you need to invest, then you're not growing. And if you're not growing, your income's not going to grow. Now, if you want to stay there, that's like fine, right? But if you want it to grow, you've got to get real with yourself, and you've got to look at where you need to grow. So your homework for today is to ask yourself, where do you need to grow specifically in this area about worrying about what people think of you? And I want you to look at that from almost kind of like a I don't know what the word is, like you start in the center and look at the people closest to you, and then go out, 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 right? Like all the way to it kind of radiates as they get further and further away from you. And start with the ones that are further away from you, because that's probably easier to deal with, and to think about how you're not going to let that affect you. And I want you to think about all the ways that you have been holding yourself back in achieving your goals that have to do with somebody else's truth, not your own. That it's been about not wanting somebody to be mad at you. And this can be people further away from you, people closest to you. I just want you to get really, really real and say, this year I didn't do X because of what somebody else said, or a restriction somebody else put on me, or a restriction in my own mind that was created by worrying about what people think. I allowed so many people to pick my brain because I didn't create a boundary because I was really worried about them liking me. And think about things like that, right? And think about everywhere that showed up. And it's really eye-opening, because then I want you to write down what you're going to do differently next year. And then identify if there's anything in there that you need to do differently that you actually need help with. Because some of them will be really easy, because you can say, okay, you know what, I did that and that was silly, and I can deal with that on my own. And there's going to be other things that are a little bit more difficult to do. And then just get really real with yourself. And if you need help, this is where the personal growth comes in. Ask for the help, get the help, invest in the help, right? Have the transformation through a transaction so that you can have more transactions coming to you in your business. And, I will put a link in the comments above or below. Like, again, I get all confused on this. If you want to talk to me about it and talk to me about what you're particularly struggling with on this piece, would love to have a conversation with you. We have a few spots that we open every single week. You go to talktonafissa.com, answer a couple of questions so that I know who you are and what you're struggling with, and we will show up on that call. And what I promise you is I will be honest, and you'll have clarity, and I will lay out what you need to do next. And then, of course, then it's up to you what you do with it, right? So I'm going to sign off for today. Come back on Thursday. We're going to be talking about boundaries. So it's kind of an expansion of what we talked about today. It's just taking a little bit deeper. We dove into it a bit. And setting boundaries and having firm and loving, yet flexible boundaries is a big part of personal growth, and that's going to help you increase your income as well. So have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you on Thursday. And do not forget to subscribe to our Living Forward TV YouTube channel, because that's where we come to you every week with some really great episodes, free resources, things that you can download to give you that first step in your business to get results faster. And again, let me know who you were, where you're watching in from today, and let me know how this topic landed for you. And if you're willing to share, you don't have to give any names, but if you're willing to share some of the areas you held yourself back, like you might just say, I held myself back on offering my services because I was worried about the person thinking I was being cheesy. That's it. You don't need to say anything like that. Or you could say, I held back from investing in the program I needed because I was worried my husband would think I was crazy. Or I held back from setting a boundary with somebody who kept trying to pick my brain because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. You don't need to go into details, but just think about that and maybe share a couple below. And the thing is, you're going to see that you're not alone, right? I mean, I shared with you some of the things I still struggle with. And when you're not alone, it also helps you to realize that, okay, I'm normal. So what do we do about it, right? How do we make this work? So I'm going to sign off for now. I hope you all have a great day, and we will see you on Thursday.